But to start the show, I want to dig into the latest that we're watching on the coronavirus front. Of course, some of the names most levered to the risks associated with the second wave have given back gains this week. When you look at airline stocks, as well as some of the other cruise lines out there, the cyclicals giving back some of the room that they've recovered here. And for more on the latest case count that we're watching in some states posing some worrisome statistics, I want to get to Yahoo Finance's Kristin Myers, who has more detail. Kristin?
Hey, Zach. So I remember when we were chatting over around Memorial Day weekend, a lot of states had decided to reopen. Beaches had been reopening. And of course, we were asking the question, well, what is going to happen in 2 to 3 weeks with the positive case count of coronavirus? Well, we have the answers. It actually seems that it probably did contribute to higher levels of coronavirus. We're seeing some spikes in cases in some states, including Texas, North and South Carolina, California, Oregon, Arkansas, Mississippi, Utah, and Arizona. We talked about some of those case numbers yesterday. I just kind of want to shout some of them out. Arizona has just under 30,000. North Carolina has about 36,000. South Carolina has roughly just under 15,000 positive cases. Now, when we talk about Texas, which we've discussed a lot over the last couple of weeks, they have just over 77,000 positive cases, and their daily new case counts have actually been on the rise. I was actually just before we hopped on here today and decided to check the positivity rate over the last couple of weeks to see if, that percentage of positive cases as a part of the total case count was on the rise. And surprise, surprise, Zach, it was. Around Memorial Day weekend on the 25th of May, their positivity rate was 5.15%. It is now 6.66%, and it actually touched 7% just the other day. So you can't no longer say, at least when it comes to Texas, that the positive case counts are rising because the number of people that they are testing is increasing, because that average number of case counts, Zach, is continuously on the rise. And it seems to be, as I was mentioning earlier, that Memorial Day weekend, when some of these states decided to reopen early, but also to reopen right around that weekend, is largely contributing. Some states, 14 in total, actually now have their highest weekly averages, Zach. Some of them I've already mentioned: Arizona, Arkansas, California. We also have Florida, Tennessee, Texas, and Utah. So it seems as if it was a pretty dangerous decision, perhaps we can say, to reopen and to allow some of those people to go out and party, as we saw in Missouri at the Lake of the Ozarks over Memorial Day weekend, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, these things take time to see those cases convert into hospital cases. We've noted that in the data that we've been seeing, in Arkansas and Arizona. But when we look at the other fears out there, mainly the fact that we've had a few protests around the country, we've heard issues with that being raised by Trump's coronavirus task force as well. The Daily Beast, I know, was listening in on that call, had audio from that. What are the concerns coming out of the White House right now when we think about how those might play into, again, kind of fueling the rising cases you were just talking about?
Right, Zach. So the Daily Beast was actually able to obtain 2 calls, 2 recorded calls. And Dr. Deborah Birxson, she's the coronavirus response coordinator, had essentially expressed just a couple of days ago on the 3rd of June that these protests and with people, yelling and shouting was essentially going to cause the coronavirus cases to spike. She also mentioned that 70 testing sites had actually been destroyed, which of course you're going to a huge effect in those case numbers and people being able to get treatment if those testing sites are destroyed. So they're trying to get some of those testing sites, particularly in metropolitan areas where a lot of these protests have been taking place, back up and running. But I kind of want to remind everyone of the conversation that you and Isaac had yesterday with an ER doctor who said, look, I mean, frankly, when it comes to these protests, people are protesting racism, and that's a public health issue. When you just look at how many Black and brown men are killed by police every year, that is a public health issue. And so people going out to protest are trying to tackle a public health issue as well. So it's a little bit of a risk reward when you consider those protests, but essentially what the motive is behind it. So I kind of just wanted to give some context there as people consider that these protests might contribute to those positive case counts.
Yeah, a little bit different than just going out and partying at the Lake of the Ozarks, but important to keep in mind.
Totally different, Zach.
Yeah, but it's going to be important to keep our eyes on those case counts, and we'll bring you the updates as always, but appreciate that from Kristin Myers.